So along with the political systems videos, I wanted to talk about philosophy. With Ghost in the Shell coming out this month, I figured we'd start by looking at the philosophies presented in the original movie and the first series that followed. So what simple philosophy can I cover for this first episode? What is life? That's pretty simple, right? Before we start, I should say this is an analysis based on what I've picked up. If you pick up something else from the series, that's great. It's deep with tons of political and philosophical concepts that I likely won't cover all of. If you have anything to add, put it down in the comments, start a metaphysical discussion, and then let it devolve into name-calling. Anyway, the question of what is life or what is existence is a cornerstone of philosophy. Is it a soul? A brain? The mind? What is life? This is one of the greatest questions posed in Ghost in the Shell, both the movie and any subsequent series. For the people who may be clicking on this just because of the new live-action movie starring Scarlett Johansson, let's run down exactly what Ghost in the Shell is. Ghost in the Shell is a manga and anime series created by Masamune Shirow, which is the pen name of Masanori Ota. And the series follows Motoko Kusanagi, also known as the Major. She heads a team called Section 9, and her team consists of Bato, Ishikawa, Togusa, as well as many others, though these are going to be our biggest players. Most of the team has some sort of cybernetic enhancement or replacement, with Togusa being the least cyberized out of the bunch. Due to the humans and technology being so intertwined, it forces us to ask what makes them human when they are ultimately mostly replaced with cybernetic prosthetics. The title of the series Ghost in the Shell is a reference to the concept of the ghost the series presents. This is what we're told gives us the defining characteristic of life. It is presented in most of the series as being something that artificial intelligence cannot replicate. The line becomes a bit blurred in the series' standalone complex, which we'll get into as we go into the exact types of philosophical arguments being presented in the series. So what is life or existence? We've said this before, but let's ask again. Well, some believe existence is just being. Some believe it's a cycle of reincarnation. Some believe existence is pain. No one answer has ever really been accepted as the ultimate answer, but the series gives us an interesting counterpoint to humanity. The integration of cybernetics and robotics into society began asking the question, how little can be left of a human's biological body before it ceases to exist as a human? Alternatively, it asks, how much self-awareness can we give a fully automated being before we can say that they are sentient? Tachikomas have an entire episode in the first standalone complex series in which they discuss at length what it means to be self-aware and be fully machine with no organic parts. They also revel in joy that humans can experience death. This is in the sense that they themselves cannot experience death in the way we do. So this answers the question the series poses with another question. Would existence mean being able to die? Like a lot of philosophical questions in the series, it never gets truly answered. Instead, is asked in other ways and in other shapes and forms. We do revisit the question in the penultimate episode in which the Tachikomas are quote-unquote killed. Earlier in the episode, they comment on the dismantled Tachikomas experiencing a form of death. But this brings up the question, how can something that isn't alive die? Okay, I know what you're saying. There are so many questions, but what does this ultimately tell us? The concept of consciousness or ghost is what they consider the definition of life. Even though it's a metaphysical concept in our world, in the Ghost in the Shell universe, they do have a signature inside the rest of the cybernetic code. But what in the real world do we define consciousness as? Taken from the completely infallible Wikipedia, because frankly it has the most well-rounded definition for it, consciousness is the state or quality of awareness or of being aware of an external object or something within oneself. It has been defined as sentience, awareness, subjectivity, the ability to experience or to feel, wakefulness, having the sense of selfhood. Despite the difficulty in definition, many philosophers believe there is a broadly shared underlying intuition about what consciousness is. As it says in the definition itself, it's hard to define and largely stems from it not being able to be directly observed. We know it is, but we don't know how to study it. Psychology will tell you it's the firing of neurons in the brain. Religion will tell you it's your spirit. Philosophers will fall somewhere in between. From the perspective of an individual, we know that the consciousness we experience is different for everyone. How I perceive something is going to be different than another person who sees the exact same thing. Physically, it's the same, but our consciousness will have had different experiences, which in turn makes us feel differently. This is the human experience or existence. When we see the majority of robots in Ghost in the Shell, we see them perform tasks or see things from how they are programmed to be seen. There have been cases of ghost dubbing, but much like recording a cassette to another cassette, the further the copy is removed from the source, the less of the individual is left. We see this when a criminal organization decides to ghost dub a drug lord. While he lives on, it is in a state where he lacks the individuality and self-awareness he had as a person. Alternatively, the Tachikomas develop a level of self-awareness previously unseen by a completely inorganic robot. As we talked about earlier, they have an in-depth conversation about life, death, and individualism. When confronted with the possibility that they would be dismantled, they act humanly towards it. They act as if they were going to be killed, then converse about how they can't be killed because they aren't technically alive. But are they not? They demonstrate characteristics of humanity that would be associated with being alive. From a glance, yes, it would seem that they are sentient, but there is something that they say that would suggest otherwise.
This means each of us had the same thought, even though we were independent of each other.
In a sense, they are saying that they all experience the same things through a sort of hive mind, and they judge all of those things by the same programming they all share. What I mean is a human might decide to save someone based on emotional response while another human chooses to weigh the odds. For Tachikomas, it's programming that simulates emotional response. They all do come to the same conclusion to save Bato as well, so despite the appearance of individuality, they are in fact acting as one programmed unit. Seeing one experience as exactly the same from all perspectives involved. So what can we say about what it is to be human from these examples? Well, in the universe of Ghost in the Shell, we can say that self-awareness and individual experiences might have a signature that programming and robotics do not. Humanity is the example of the individual and how it looks through the filter of past experiences. For example, the reason Major is connected to her team members is because of her personal experiences surrounding them. The only way a Tachikoma would be connected to an object or a human would be if they were programmed to act as a guardian or servant. It's not based on experience, but rather a set of protocols. While there's no doubt that the science explains the reason we react to stimuli in the general ways we do, we also have those experiences built up that will always change the intricacies of how we react. So in a sense, we are human because we experience life. And though it seems like a cop-out of an answer, that's the beauty of philosophy. It has no clear answers. Philosophy is speculation, debates, and conversation. With the general question in the series being studied, I would one day like to return and discuss the more specific question of dualism versus monism, or are the mind and the body separate? Tell me if you'd like to see a follow-up philosophy video in the comments below. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, give us a like, subscribe, and do the numerous other things that YouTube tells me to tell you to do.